this is relevant to people's lives now. People talk about, well, you just got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps to get ahead. And it's like, well, it's not that simple if literally generations of economic hardship are affecting one group of people and it's not affecting the other. It's not the same playing field. And the more people who know that and understand that, the more likely we are to create policies to undo that damage or things that can help give people a leg up. But if the youth aren't made aware of things like that, it's not going to change because they can deny that it's going on. And that's really what all of these attacks on education are about. The right wing has learned that people who are educated tend to lean left. Well, I don't want to say people who are educated, that sounds elitist, but people who know more about the history of the country, who actually learn about the institutions that we have, present and past, are more likely to vote for people who promote left leaning policies. That's why they want to get rid of the Department of Education, because they understand that ignorance is their friend.
Yeah. Sorry, Jackson. I didn't mean to cut you off when I was saying the thing earlier. If you still had more to your point, go ahead and make it. I apologize.
Oh, no, you're good. I mean, I didn't have anything really specific, but just kind of going off of what you mentioned there, Dylan. I mean, you can just go through the list of all down the list of all the ways that Black people have been marginalized and oppressed in our country in very tangible ways. Um, Housing loan discrimination and redlining, gerrymandering to disenfranchise communities of color in the South. Um, the private the prison industrial complex with the 13th Amendment. You often hear from activists on the left and sort of in different you know Black communities and Black academics sometimes say that slavery never went away, it just took a different form.
Yep.
And with the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery officially in our Constitution, the caveat that's in the 13th Amendment is except as a punishment for a crime. So that's exactly the loophole in what you see in the South of, so all we have to do to put Black people in prison and then use their labor, extort their labor, is to convict them of a crime, which was all too easy in the Jim Crow South. And even after that, even after the civil rights movement, you can make a very compelling argument that it exists today, even racial biases on juries in the South, in some parts of the South. And I think the numbers are Black people make up something like 30% of our population, but what is it, like 80% or 70% of our prison population? And that's just the proof is right there in the pudding when you talk about this inequality. And like you also said, it ties very neatly in with their disdain for public education, with their disdain for secular education, because they realize that the more they can't directly control public school curriculum in blue states. Say they can't control it. Maybe they can in the South. They still learn elements of the lost cause myth. Heck, we in rural Northern California learned elements of the lost cause myth, like you said, with our teachers saying that slavery was not a cause of the Civil War. It's patently false, and it's semantics ultimately to say it wasn't, to say, oh, it was about states' rights, it was about the economic institutions of the South. They all tie back to slavery. And so if the lost cause myth, which was perpetuated during the Jim Crow era, and especially in the early 20th century, is prevalent in Northern California, imagine how strong of a foothold it has in rural Mississippi, say, or Alabama, or any of these southern states. Really, it's extremely prevalent. And so not being able to control the historical narrative, or we're really, what, like we also mentioned, what critical race theory is setting the historical record straight from this poison of the lost cause myth that was allowed to infect our public education curriculum in the early 20th century, and has sort of stayed in the shadows up to this day in a lot of places. So, but they don't want that because they don't want people, they want people to be patriotic and to think that any criticism of the United States or our country is um, somehow traitorous,
Right.
somehow traitorous to criticize it in any way or even acknowledge our dark history, dark past with race relations.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to dive next week. One of the main topics I'm actually going to be talking about is prison labor, because we're seeing a lot more of that actually today in many different states, not just in the South, but other states, kind of as you were mentioning with the other topics related to that there. Before we go on, I just wanted to touch on a couple more points with Project 2025. Another one that I wrote down, it says prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East, and build a great Iron Dome missile defense shield over our entire country, all made in America. Once again, as actually it's even smaller than I said it was earlier. I responded to that by making a point of with what money. They always talk about how are we going to pay for it? Well, how are we going to pay for that? How would that even work? How much would it cost? Israel, once again, is twice the size of the LA County, and California alone is actually 20 times bigger. So you're talking about doing something they've done over there across the entire country. Absolutely ridiculous. And then there's also in there says in the weaponization of a government against the American people. I mean, if you're talking about getting rid of the DEA and getting rid of the NSA, I'm right there with you, but I don't think that's what they mean by that. I don't know what they mean by that. That'd be something to be nice to know. Rebuild our cities, including Washington, D.C., making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. Again, like I say with so many things with Trump, what does that mean? I genuinely don't know what that means. Keep the
There's some
U.S.
hidden
dollar
racism in there.
Mm-hmm.
keep
Mm-hmm.
the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, secure our elections, including same day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. So that obviously ties back into 2020 a little bit. And then unite our country by bringing it to new and record levels of success. And again, what does that mean? There's nothing specific put in there. So a lot of that language, ironically, does sound, even though Trump tries to disassociate himself with that, a lot of the vagueness behind a lot of those points really relate to sounding just like him as well. So just to, wanted to go through all of that so everybody gets a full picture. And again, as anything I ever talk about on this channel, I highly recommend people do their own research on a lot of this stuff as well. But mainly wanted to talk about the main points that are founded in those documents regarding Project 2025. With that being said, that's going to do it for at least this part of the show. I'm actually going to probably end up posting this in 2 different parts. I'll have another segment recorded with Jackson that'll be posted as well. But I wanted to thank you guys for coming on once again. Jackson, thank you for coming on. Dylan, thank you guys for coming on once again. You guys have been great, providing a lot of expertise on all this stuff. And I'd love to have you guys back at some point as well. You guys were great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having us.
Of course.
Thanks so much, Aaron. It was a pleasure as always.
Of course. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the Liberation Hour for this week. Again, we will be back probably some point next week. And who knows? The world, hopefully the world's still going on at that point with everything going on. And we'll have a lot more next week. Obviously, that prison labor topic amongst much more. So until next time, take care, everybody. Peace out. Have a good one.